Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. And today's guest is Dré Slaman. Hi, Dré.
Hi.
So good to have you as a guest on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We're going to have a great conversation because you have so many hats, right? I mean, you are the co-founder and CEO of Farm to Fit, which we're going to talk about. Very exciting business. You're an actress. You are a mother. You are an amazing entrepreneur. So you also volunteer for EO, for entrepreneur organizations. So you are the president-elect. So you're going to be the president of the chapter of the Portland chapter next year. So a lot of activities, right? And you managed to do them all. So we are going to, at least on the outside, it looks like that.
It's true.
So, we have to talk about processes and systems. So we're going to have a nice conversation about that. But let's talk about Farm to Fit first. Like, explain to our listeners what it is. And then we'll talk about how you got started on this entrepreneurial journey.
Okay, let's jump right in. Farm to Fit was founded 11 years ago. It'll be 11 years on November 1st. And we're a healthy meal delivery service. So we deliver ready-to-eat meals, portion-controlled, 1,000 different diets, whatever you can think of. Prepare them, get them ready to go, put them in a package, and deliver them to your home. And you heat them in the microwave or the oven or however you like. You can have as many as 3 meals a day or 21 meals a week. So we could do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We do it all. So that's Farm to Fit. Healthy, delicious, and easy.
Amazing. Well, how did you get started?
So I founded Farm to Fit with my husband, G. Scott Brown. And when we moved to Portland, I guess 12 years ago, we were looking for a service like this and couldn't find it. And we were searching. The closest thing we found was something in Seattle. And we discovered that they FedExed the food to you. And back then we thought that was like the most ridiculous idea in the entire world. We're like, FedExing food? What? That's crazy. What a waste. That's terrible. We were all up in arms about it. Hindsight's 2020 if we knew then what we know now. But we decided then that we would create a service that we were looking for and something that was good for the earth and better than a FedEx package to your house. So we were pioneers, certainly, of the convenient meal delivery here in Portland. And there were a few throughout the country, a handful. And now, of course, as you know, it's a gigantic industry. So that's where we started.
Wow. So it started with a bright idea, with a need, which definitely starts that way. And then a bright idea. And then 11 years later, a successful business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the lessons that you can mention in terms that you learned throughout those 11 years?
So many. What are the best ones? You know what I think one of the lessons that I learned, I've been actually thinking about this a lot lately, so I don't know how relevant it is to to the whole big picture, but it's something I've just been thinking about, is that throughout the course of my entrepreneurship, I've learned to lean on people in a way that I wasn't able to do 11 years ago. I think part of it was being a woman in business and quote unquote young. I don't think I'm young, but that 11 years ago, I was seen as a young, girl in business, and she's just trying, all those things. And so something that I think I developed over the course of the years is just like a real steel, thick skin, I'm going to do it all. And I'm just going to have to prove myself even more. We all know work better, harder, faster, in order to kind of prove yourself. And something that I've realized over the course, I think, of the last half a decade, I would say, is that actually doesn't make you a good leader. It doesn't make you a better leader. I think leaning on people and kind of having that ability to be vulnerable or to say, I can't do this right now. I need you to help me, with a team, with my leadership team or anybody else, it's been, I think, one of the strongest lessons I've learned as far as leadership goes.
That makes total sense. I interviewed several people that said the same thing in terms of, you have that facade or that idea of who you have to be as an entrepreneur, right? Or as a business owner. And you don't surround yourself with, you don't have the support system that you need. So I think part of the process or the system to put in place as an entrepreneur is to actually have a strong support system or strong advisory system or whatever, people that you can go to and be yourself and say, hey, this is what I'm running into. What did you find? Like, what resources do you recommend? What do you know, etc. So I think that is actually more common than not, because that's why you have organizations like EO of Vistage or other, that's why you have trusted advisors and coaches and leadership coaching and etc. because you need that support. So I think it's very important, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I also learned to do that with my team too, right? The people that I employ, and say, I don't know, like there's something really liberating in, I don't know, do you? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to have a better idea than I do, or a better thought. It took a while to get to that place for me to say, I actually don't know the answer here. Can you tell me?
Right.
Yeah, it's a gift.
It really is. So it's the ability, it's the support, surrounding yourself with people that can support you. It's the ability to admit that you don't know and then learn. And, it takes, it's kind of like you have to leave your ego aside and to actually go there and say, hey, you know what? I don't know this, but I'm going to learn. And that is definitely important. In terms of the support system, what would you recommend to other entrepreneurs in terms of like developing some kind of a support system too, so that so they can get help, so it's not lonely, so they can have somebody to bounce ideas or be vulnerable. So what would you recommend from your experience? What worked and what didn't?
Gosh, that's just a really great question. I think that this is so cliche, but I feel like trusting my gut in, first of all, in the people that we hired. We made, I think, a couple of really grave mistakes in hiring people earlier than we needed them that were way outside of our budget. But we thought that this was actually like the golden nugget of the person that we needed in our business. And twice now, that was a terrible decision. But if we had kind of gone with our guts and just gone with what was like authentic for us, we would have probably made better choices sooner. And so, getting to your question, really feeling like aligned with the people that we're bringing onto our team.
Yeah.
That we're the same, we have the same ethos and the same values. When we started hiring around core values, of course, and not just around what we thought was the next greatest thing, it really changed. So for me, trusting my gut, hiring off of core values really brought us a support system around kind of the people that we're working around. And that was really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it aligns to everything, anybody, right? I mean, a trusted advisor, vendor, definitely employees. So it's somebody that really aligns with you and is with you is definitely the number one thing about a support system.
Yes.
Now, this subject came up in several other podcasts when I interview family members that work together. So how is it working with your husband? Well,
I don't recommend it. No, just kidding. I'm teasing. It's not terrible, it's fine. I think we struggled a little bit at the beginning, and he would probably tell you the same thing. Because at the beginning, the seed, at the beginning of the business and entrepreneurship, we were both doing everything. and so it was like me, G and I, my husband is G, and then a chef. And so there were three of us, and we were prepping food, and we were cooking food, and we were delivering food, and we were doing, it was just, and we got bigger, and we didn't stop doing that. Like we all did everything. And so once we identified it and decided to really separate kind of what our roles were, and everybody, each of us were accountable for separate things, it really changed the course of how we were able to work together. So he would be in charge of one thing and I would be in charge of anything. So if somebody came to me asking me a question that wasn't in my official role, even though I knew the answer, it still happens today. Even though I know, I always say, well, go ask G or go talk to G, because there's just a real clear definition of who's doing what. So we don't step on each other's toes. It really saved a lot of pain and heartache, to be honest with you.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think that is a great advice in terms of like really separate the hats. But the main thing is you separate the hats, you separate the roles, you know what each is doing. And that applies to any organization, to any business. But it's really also sticking to it, right? Because what I've seen where it actually becomes a problem is like, okay, you're going to be the CFO, I'm going to be the CEO, but then the CEO becomes the CFO, or so maintaining that discipline, or that doing it, actually, that is key. So what are some of the things that you do in order to actually keep that discipline in, of not stepping on, like you said, not stepping on each other's toes, or not going into G's realm, which is what he does, and he doesn't go into yours?
It's a challenge. It is a challenge every day, especially I think less so for him. He's way better at it. But for me, I'm just kind of, I joke, I'm bossy, but I just want to know everything, so it's really hard for me to kind of keep my distance. So it's easy to do with team members, because I can always defer, I trust that they'll go to him and they're better at it. But with vendors or partners, it's tricky. For instance, he's in charge of marketing, and that's one of his roles. And even just yesterday, I sat in on a meeting with one of our, partners, and it was really challenging for me not to kind of take over, and to remember to be a fly on the wall. So I don't know if I have any really great answer for how do we do it, except just kind of remind myself that it's in the greater interest, like the greater good of the business and our marriage. If I just keep my mouth shut and I let him do, and frankly, like we'll have a meeting and I'll say my, with somebody else, and I'll go to him and I'll say my piece, but I try really hard not to do it directly to somebody else. It's not like I don't have any opinions, clearly, but it's behind closed doors, or it's, not really making him, I hope he'd say the same thing, but kind of diminishing his role in front of other people. I feel like that's really detrimental.
It really is. So that's definitely good advice in terms of empowering the other person. And, we all make mistakes. We're not perfect, right? So it's not like I'm looking for like, oh yeah, this is what I do and this is how I actually maintain the separation. But I think just saying it, because you know how it is. People are listening to us now on a podcast. When we listen to a podcast or read a book, although we heard it many times before, we hear it again and we say, yeah, this is a good reminder. And yes, marriages, husband and wife can work together, but it's really a matter of separating the roles, really clearly defined, and then let each other actually wear that hat and not interfere, just like you wouldn't do with another team member, because you know that they are going to quit on you. Mm-hmm. So I think it's also try not to make allowances for family, for good or bad, that you wouldn't do for others, right? Because when you're at work, it's a different hat than at home, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you manage to separate, or do you separate the business from home life, or do you find yourself that you mingle it, or how does it work?
We've gone back and forth over the years of that. At one point there was a rule, like we don't talk about it after 6, or, when we're at the home, we don't talk about it. At the beginning, we just talked about it all the time. It was all we did. And then we kind of got into that rule, and it just got, it got really rigid for us. And so, I'll say 2 things. One is our daughter is 8. And once she came into the world and kind of started becoming a person, it became harder to talk about work when she's around because she's, our like all of our attention goes to her because she's an only child and she's going to be spoiled for the rest of her life because of that.
And she's wonderful. I mean, I met her. She's so well-mannered, so beautiful and smart. So I don't know how much you are spoiling. I mean, you're probably spoiling her, but you're doing a good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, by her undivided attention. So she's helped a lot. I think one thing we will talk about it, we have to, because we don't spend a lot of time during the days together because we have that separation. But I think there's, like, I will say often, let's talk about this tomorrow, or we'll have a conversation, but I don't want to get into the weeds about it. So let's talk about it tomorrow. And frankly, by the end of the day is at 8:00 at night, my brain is tired and I don't have the capacity to talk about it, but we'll start the conversation. We'll let each other say our thing and then just kind of make a point of saying, okay, let's bring it back later, and that just has to be okay. So it's kind of gray. Like I don't think the rigidity of the rule around we can't talk about it at home is realistic for us. I know a lot of people who do it and who are really successful at that.
Yeah, I think again, in terms of that, it's making the rule that works for you, right? There is no one universal rule. You never talk about work at home, but you have to make sure that it works for you. And obviously, we are creating a little process here of how to a little system of how to work with your spouse. But like any process or any system, you want to measure it. You want to tie it to a scorecard or to a metric. So the metric is, how is life at home? From on a scale of 1 to 10, how is the stress? How is the relationship? How are you all getting along together? Are you having fun? Do you feel like you're fulfilling what your goals as a family? And if the answer is yes, apparently you're doing something right. So continue, right? If not, then you have to look at and fix what is not working. So definitely. So Dré, you're also an actress. Tell me about that.
I am. So one of the reasons G and I started the business, we're both actors. We met getting our MFAs together at Northern in Illinois.
And MFA stands for?
Master of Fine Arts in Acting.
Excellent.
And so we actually started the business, yes, because we were looking for the service. But the secondary kind of reason was because we both didn't want to work what we call in the business as survival jobs anymore, where we had to kind of report to somebody else in order to make a living. So he was waiting tables. I was working in property management. And for years, for over a decade, I would try to schedule auditions during lunch breaks. Or I remember, being in LA and driving to Redondo Beach and then back and then trying to get, because it was just like these crazy times of reporting for other people. So we decided that we didn't want to do that anymore so we can pursue our careers in acting. And so that's the other reason that we started Farm to Fit. It's the biggest joke because now we're just working for our employees, it's like harder work and more, and, there's more stress around it. So we did it to kind of alleviate some of the stress. And now you're in we're entrepreneurs. So that lives in kind of your world all the time. But I am an actor. And so it's one of the things, and, when I get asked, like, how do you do both, or how could you possibly do both, or why? I always say it's because I can't not be an actor. Like, that's who I am. And that's why I'm working as hard as I am in business, so that I can give myself the opportunity to do those things. And I'm lucky and fortunate enough to be able to,
That's amazing. It's amazing that you were able to reconcile those two worlds and you'll be able to have a successful business and have a successful career as an actress. So is G acting as well? Does he continue?
Yes, he does. He does. I think I do. I'm a little bit more out there. I do a little bit more. He just recently shot a film and kind of commercial work. There's a lot of commercial work actually here in Portland, believe it or not. So yeah, we both kind of do our thing.
So what is your favorite acting? Is it film? Is it theater, live theater? What do you prefer?
Yeah, 100% live theater. It's my favorite. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Are you on a show right now?
Hot off the presses. Yes, I am. Although the ink is not dry yet. So I might have to just get a little teaser there until the contract signed. But yes.
Where? We need to know. We need to go see you.
I will be in around, I think, January at Artist Repertory Theater.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I know, we're breaking news right here on your podcast.
Amazing. Okay, well, definitely. So I think this is a good point to tell our listeners, like if they want to find more about Farm to Fit, how do they do that? And if they want to see you acting, how do they do that?
Farmtofit.com is our website. You can find out all of the information on there. Follow us on social media, of course. And same with me. DréSlaman.com, I think, is my website.
Fantastic. Yes. And Farm to Fit, I was going to say to the listeners, don't look at a website when you're hungry because you want to order everything. But maybe that's the best time to do it. Like when you're hungry, go there because even when you're not hungry, just like the pictures and the menus and the entire website. So absolutely farmtofit.com. Go and check it out. And Dré, we're going to have all the links for you, for the company in the show notes so people can check it out. And thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast and sharing your experience. And, we created a little process there about how to be able to have a successful, happy marriage and happy family, but still work with your spouse, which is great. We got to learn about you. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.